Disturbing facts about the human body. PT.6. After abdominal surgery, you'll notice your guts will seem to fall from one side to the other. Doctors have confirmed that those are your bowels rearranging themselves. You can die of a broken heart. You can have your heart broken and become ill to where your body goes into survival mode and can shut down major functions. After the age of 28, you are actively in the process of dying because your cells are being destroyed faster than they can be replaced. An estimated 60% of cancers arise from non-modifiable risk factors. In other words, they are not due to any lifestyle choices and they are not preventable.
Found dead, she must have been out of her head.
Hi, my name is Ethan and we'll be talking about disturbing facts so sinister I stopped sleeping. Number 1. Since the 1980s, there's been estimated over 220,000 unsolved serial killers in the United States. Number 2. When Disney first opened the new Pirates of the Caribbean ride in the 1960s, for props, they used real human skeleton remains. They claimed that the real ones were so much better than the props that they had. Eventually, they filtered them out and got fake ones. Number 3. Mount Everest is not only the highest viewpoint in the world, but it's also the highest graveyard. It's estimated that there are over 150 bodies buried in the snow.
Disturbing facts you wish you never knew. You have tiny skin mites that come out at night and do the thing on your face. A 10-second kiss on the lips can pass on 80 million bacteria, some unknown to scientists. Good thing you don't have to worry about that. Certain kinds of tumor called teratoma can cause your body to grow teeth and hair around it. When Eskimo babies have colds, their mother sucks the snot out of their nose with their mouth. Yummy. People who stay up at night are more likely to become psychopaths compared to those who sleep early. So please go to sleep now.
Disturbing facts about Disney that will leave you shocked. 18-year-old actress who voiced Snow White was paid less than $1,000 to do it. She also was not credited. The Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland used real skulls in its set design when it first opened. Actress who played Lilo in Lilo and Stitch also played Samara in The Ring. Part of your world was almost cut from The Little Mermaid because the chair of Walt Disney Studios was afraid that kids would think that the song was boring. Stan from Beauty and the Beast in the 1995 version was the first male villain in any Disney princess movie. After Finding Nemo came out, there was a problem with kids around the world flushing their fish down the toilet so that they could go back to the ocean. The music on the It's a Small World ride never, ever turns off. Follow for more facts.
But what exactly is going on here? Why are these artists so comfortable with telling you guys that you're going to hell?
Well, let me explain something to them real quick. Before everybody starts screaming and saying, oh, like I told y'all earlier, you motherfuckers enter the rapture. And if ain't nobody flying up to heaven right now, obviously all y'all motherfuckers going to hell. Right with me. So, let's get it. I'm so sorry, you can't get out. You're stuck. It's over. You heard the song a million times and you didn't even know.
And then say you're still going to listen to their music anyway, so why even bring it up?
We bring up the when people say like devil worshiper or anything, but how's the music? Because it'll be a motherfucker that'll be like, Uzi, get with God. And then I'll drop a song and like, damn.
Comment amen right now to ward off any evil spirits coming from these videos. And what's up with everybody doing this hand symbol? Like, this was never a trend. I never saw any of my friends doing this pose. What does it mean and what are you trying to say? And I don't want to hear this just a pose. It's not like the peace sign. And check this out.
I was hitting a block, right? I was like, oh, I'm not doing it right? So I went in the corner and then I was looking at the wall and I was like, come on, devil, right? Come to me, because I had to do something like crazy, right? Had nightmares for a month.
So let me get this straight. You really need to call upon the devil in order to help you act better for a role. Again, we can't act oblivious like something weird isn't going on here. But let me know, am I tripping? Am I crazy? And make sure to follow because part 2 is about to get a lot more crazy.
NASA have just announced the discovery of an Earth-sized planet that they say could be habitable. It's called TOI 700e, fucking great name. It's 95% of Earth size, likely rocky, and it falls within what they call the Goldilocks habitable zone. This is apparently where the distance between the planet and the star that it orbits is at a perfect point that can sustain liquid water, meaning that the conditions could be just right for life to exist. So the question is this just overhyped, or is 2023 about to get...
Four of the most horrifying things we've ever found on beaches. Number 1, a sack containing 54 severed human hands. I don't really know, I don't have words to describe how horrifying this is, and I could not imagine just finding a bag on the beach and opening it up and be like, oh look, human hands, but this happened in Siberia. Number 2, famine victims. Basically a bunch of human bones washed up onto a beach, and they were actually from something called a coffin ship, which were a bunch of ships that kind of left Ireland during the potato famine where everyone was starving to death and dying, and we found some human bones on a beach. Number 3, a dead sperm whale filled with plastic. Now that might not sound horrifying, but if you think about it, there's so much plastic in the ocean that it took down the largest toothed predator currently on our planet. That is horrifying that it is that present in our ocean and that deadly. For the Montauk monster, people hypothesize that this deformed looking creature was everything from a chupacabra to the missing link, but basically it's just a really deformed raccoon. As horrifying as that looks, it's just literally a trash pan.
Disturbing facts you didn't want to hear, part 2. Many doctors say that the most common last words they hear are, "I don't feel so good." Most laugh tracks you hear in TV shows were recorded in the 1950s, meaning that the people you hear laughing are probably dead. During the French Revolution, it was said that the guillotine had to be used multiple times to get the job done. The reason that planes shut off their lights right before they land is so that passengers' eyes can adjust to the dark just in case there's a crash. This is so if the power goes out during the crash landing, they can better find an escape route.
Whatever you do, do not answer this phone call. This is John Pork. Now, he's supposedly a CGI-generated influencer with an unsettling appearance. He seems to be half man, half swine. The creature posts videos of himself dancing and traveling around the world to popular tourist locations. But this is where things get scary. You see, John used to call everybody, but nobody would answer before he was sadly unalived. Yeah, John is no longer with us. He had went out for a night of fun and tragically was unalived. After this, people have been getting strange calls from a haunting contact that says John Pork. And if you answer, this is what happens. Before I tell you, I know this food look good. I'm sorry, I can't share. But here's what we're gonna do. Your fourth at has to make or buy you food for the rest of this month, since I made you suffer. Let me know who it is. Supposedly, if you answer the call of John Pork, you'll summon him from the dead, and at midnight, he'll appear.
These are facts that will make your skin crawl, part 1. Up first, did you know that women can actually give birth after death? It's extremely rare, but it's called coffin birth. Up next, everybody has definitely heard of the 5-second rule and probably applied it in your life at least once. But did you know in those 5 seconds, minor insects can still crawl on your food after you drop it on the floor, pick it up, and then eat it? Up next, if a black cat looks at you and then suddenly runs away, it means that something unusual is about to happen to you. So if this happened to you recently, then I recommend just staying in your room and not leaving. Finally, did you know that a cockroach can live 9 days without its head before it starves to death? This is absolutely crazy, and as weird as this sounds, I have to see it to believe it.
Truth Through Media Part 4. At the end of the Men in Black movie, they zoom out to show the viewers the immense size of the universe, and then show our universe within a marble, and a being throwing this marble, and then picking up our marble with our universe in it, and putting it in a bag full of other marbles. This was not by accident. Now, don't forget that scientists around the world are now disclosing, including NASA, that the universe is a living being and they're working to understand it. So really, we are small, puny creatures living inside or on a giant creature. Just like the cells in our body, how they have lives of their own, including the bacteria and viruses within us, we are the same in a way. But this is what I mean by science is working to understand it, because even people that channel extraterrestrials say that they don't even fully understand the life of this grand being. I think this is so cool because it doesn't just say that we live in a giant being, but that everything small is just a small version of something big. Now y'all see why I'm a nerd, right? This is me thinking. Really, we don't fully understand what this greater being is and how it lives and why we live within inside of it. All we know is that it exists.
Here are 3 indie horror games that will actually terrify you, with number 1 being the scariest of the 3 games. At number 3, we have The Pony Factory. A machine from hell turns people into disgusting abominations that resemble horses. You have a nail gun and you have to take them out, but here's the catch. The game is dark and you can only either hold your flashlight or your gun at a time. Number 2 is The Prototype. You have to test a children's robotic toy and things start to go wrong. As you play, more of the story is revealed, and this is the part of the game that's actually scary. I won't spoil the story here, but I have a full playthrough of this game on my channel if you're interested. And at number 1, we have Slide in the Woods. Man, this game. You're in a park and you slide down the slide over and over again. But then the more times you go down the slide, the more things start to change in the world around you. Like at first it was daytime, and then all of a sudden it's night. And then once when you slide down, everything changes and it is terrifying. This game is free. Please try it out for yourself and go in blind.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer, do. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you.
Scary fun facts until the Orbeez overflow. If there was a zombie apocalypse, we'd be outnumbered 15-1. There was a chicken named Mike that lived for 18 months with no head. Yellowstone volcano would cover almost the entire country if it erupted, and it's well overdue. There's a brain-eating organism known as Naegleria fowleri that lives in lakes and rivers in southern United States. Only one man survived the electric chair, and he said death tastes like peanut butter. Ladybugs eat half their larvae to ensure the survival of the other half, like a natural Thanos. And it looks like I'm out of time. Follow for more fun facts.
So I found these conspiracy theories that are so believable, they actually might be true. Number 1, studies show that cats understand human commands but don't care to follow them. Yeah, I don't like cats. I'm a dog kind of guy. Number 2, it is believed that when you die in a dream, you wake up because your brain doesn't know how to process the idea of what comes after death. Could be. I believe it. Number 3, now this is scary. The reason Disney came out with a movie called Frozen was so that when you Googled Disney Frozen, you would get information about the movie and not the websites talking about Walt Disney's body being frozen. I mean, I did see an article about this that was published in 1995. Not sure if this is true or not, but I do believe it. This is where it gets freaky. Number 4, Mike Tyson's fight, Time Traveler. This fight was in 1995. If you look closely, you can see that could be a smartphone. In fact, it does look like a smartphone to me. There were no smartphones in 1995. This is how phones used to look like in 1995. They didn't have cameras. They barely had any color. But this thing double flashed. Exactly like how an iPhone or an Android would take a picture. I don't know about time travel, but this is very interesting. I'd really like to know what this thing was. What's the creepiest conspiracy theory that you heard of?
Let's talk about the terrifying lore surrounding the various creatures of the horror game Iron Lung. It's important to start with the fact that Iron Lung takes place entirely underneath the surface of a blood ocean on the moon, and this blood ocean is thought to be completely empty. However, it's not empty at all, and the first creature I want to talk about is this one right here. This is the one that burst through your ship at the very end of the game, but he's actually seen much earlier. So it's implied that he follows the path of your submarine through the entire game. Next is the most iconic moment of the game when you first see this eye on your camera. It belongs to a giant whale-like creature, but how do we know that? The giant whale skeletons on the surface of the blood ocean tell us that there might be many of these creatures, and this portal into the void gives us an idea of where they might be coming from.
Hey, remember this nonsense of the cheetah gator? Yeah, this was real and there was a time where it was everyone's problem. Its actual name is the Pasuchus, and his hood is in what is now South America and Africa. And the memes are true, he was a land op, meaning he would run his prey down. Scientists believe the Pasuchus would have galloped after its prey. Luckily for everything around it, it was actually a mini-me that only grew to about 3 to 5 feet long, and it probably only ate small lizards, mammals, and dinosaur hatchlings. Now, if this guy pulled up on you, it would be a very different movie. Caprosuchus saharicus was a 23-foot middle finger with teeth that looked like it belonged to a feral pig, which is actually why they were nicknamed the boar croc. And unlike crocodiles today, whose eyes are at the top of their head, the Caprosuchus' eyes were more lateral. You might not realize it, but that's very bad, because instead of just hiding in the water with just its eyes above the surface, this assault weapon with teeth had binocular vision and depth perception, meaning not only was it catching bodies on land, it was probably chasing them down too. And unlike its smaller cousin, it probably clapped dinosaurs. And if Google's right, this 23-foot monster with boar jaws would have been almost as fast as Usain Bolt, and they would have attacked you by slamming their snout into you like a sledgehammer. The only reason they're not around today is even nature knows when it's gone too far.
This is a disturbing story about Genie Wiley. The young girl seen in this photo's name is Genie Wiley, otherwise known as the feral child barely able to walk at 13. For her entire life, her father had abused her insanely viciously, keeping her in a makeshift straitjacket and tying her to a children's toilet in a locked room all day. And when she did anything or made any sound that he didn't like, he'd growl at her and bare his teeth like a dog. Under such brutal conditions, Wiley never learned how to walk or speak, which is actually just so inhumane. When this photo was taken of her after she was rescued and taken to a hospital, her life inside a series of abusive institutions was only beginning. Today, Genie Wiley lives in an adult foster care home somewhere in Southern California. Nobody knows about her present condition, but in 2000, somebody hired a private investigator to find her, and they described her as kind of happy.
Did you know people who stay up late and get up late are more likely to become psychopaths? Hello, and here's some creepy facts. Most laugh tracks and shows are from people in the 50s, which means you are hearing the laughter of dead people. If you wake up between 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. for no apparent reason, there's a 90% chance something was staring at you. Lack of sleep will shrink your brain. 70% of your dreams contain hidden meanings. On average, people escape death about 6 times through their life without knowing it. You're always 6 minutes away from death, but breathing resets the clock. Your body is the weakest between 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. as this is the time most people die in their sleep. If you shiver for no reason, then it means a spirit is passing near you. Heartbreak is a real thing known as broken heart syndrome, and the symptoms are similar to a heart attack. Your phone has a very tiny camera that watches your every move. Every time you sneeze, you skip a heartbeat.
Let's talk about a disturbing entity in Silent Hill that blurs the line between an angel and a demon. Valtiel. Valtiel's name basically means God's servant, and that's exactly what he does. Throughout the entirety of Silent Hill 3, he follows Heather Mason everywhere, just watching and waiting. But what exactly is he waiting for? Remember, Valtiel is a being that serves God, and the antagonists in Silent Hill 3 are trying to resurrect God by using Heather Mason. So every time the player dies in Silent Hill 3, Valtiel drags Heather Mason off screen and revives her. And at the end of the game, when Heather Mason gets rid of the god growing inside of her, Valtiel steps in and forces the ritual to happen anyway, which births a disfigured version of God. There are also some theories that Valtiel may be related to Pyramid Head in some way, but I'm not too sure about that after researching.
These are 8 horrifying facts that will probably keep you up at night. There are thousands of old diseases frozen in the glaciers of the world, and global warming will eventually release them all. If a person dies in their costume at Disney, like Mickey Mouse, they have to be sat down on a bench so it looks like they're resting. Climate change is making spiders bigger. Some female spiders allow their young to eat them alive. Tooth in the eye surgery is when surgeons put a tooth in a blind person's eye to restore their sight. It was pioneered in the 1960s, and it actually works, and it's still being done today. The chances of a successful CPR outside of a hospital is only 7%. Cell phones are 10 times dirtier than a toilet seat. When you suddenly wake up during the night without any reason, there was someone or something staring at you. Yeah, there's a lot more, like for part 12.
What is the scariest game you've ever played? I get this question almost every time I post a video or stream. And even though I've probably played well over 100 horror games, it's probably something like Dead Space, Outlast, or PT, right? It's actually something you might not have heard of. The scariest game I've ever played is a game called Lost in Vivo. But what makes this game so terrifying? Lost in Vivo takes inspiration from many different horror classics and puts them into one horrifying package. Every different type of scare you can imagine is in this game. It's also one of the only horror games I've ever played that gets scarier the longer you play. If you're not someone that gets scared easily, give this one a try. This is one of the most disturbing stories in video game history. Let's talk about the story behind Resident Evil's most tragic character, Lisa Trevor. Our story starts before the events of Resident Evil 1. Lisa Trevor was the daughter of George and Jessica Trevor. George was a big architect in charge of building the Spencer Mansion. And when the family is invited to the mansion to celebrate after its completion, the daughter and mother are kidnapped. They're each given different strains of the progenitor virus that causes their body to go through horrible mutations. Eventually, the mother Jessica Trevor is executed after these experiments are deemed a failure. But Lisa is responding well to the virus, and they keep her there for a long time, performing experiment after experiment on her. She was barely even human anymore after all the testing, so they decided to get rid of her. But they couldn't. At this point, Lisa Trevor's regenerative abilities were so great that she was virtually invincible. She would later escape into the Arklay Mountains to live a life of despair and solitude until she met her end in Resident Evil 1.
Creepy last words people said right before dying. Registered nurse Shirley Smith said that she had a very rich patient who was a true Satanist that was dying of cancer. The patient had upside-down crosses and a Satan's Bible by her bedside. Shirley said that she will never forget what happened. It was the middle of the summer, and yet it was so cold and dark in her room that you couldn't even stand it, even in the middle of the day. She said that it got so evil feeling in there that she had to call a priest to pray with her and her aides before they would even enter the room. When the patient passed away, she had not spoken in over 24 hours. And then all of a sudden, she sat straight up and said, "Satan, take me." And then she fell back on the bed. Shirley said that after she passed, the room got bright and extremely warm. Shockingly, when they moved the patient's body, they had to get rid of the mattress because where her body had been, it looked burnt. And the most horrible smell was emanating from the mattress cover. Needless to say, Shirley went to confession immediately because she did not want an evil spirit around her. A nurse said that one of their patients had a serious recurrence and had to be admitted. Over the course of several nights, he had become quite upset during rounds. He kept asking for his wallet, saying that he had to pay
the ferryman. The medical student on rotation in the department took a quarter out of his pocket and put it in the patient's hand. The patient then dropped the coin into the cup on his bedstand and calmed down. Later that night, he passed away quietly. The nurse asked what happened. The medical student, who remembered his Greek mythology, said that the patient had to pay Charon, the ferryman, to be taken across the river Styx. A nurse said that he was doing rounds at a hospital. There was one 2-patient room, and one of the patients was a very loud and confused woman who could be quite a handful. On this particular night, she had a roommate who had passed away shortly before the nurse entered the room. She was DNR, so there was no code blue. When he entered the room, he noticed that the elderly lady, who was usually very loud and confused, was sitting quietly with her hands crossed neatly upon her lap. Something was different, and there was this look of serenity on her face. She asked him in a voice that seemed much younger and clearer than before, "Did you see them, young man? They're so beautiful." He said, "No, ma'am, there's no one else here." She said, "They're right next to you, talking to Mrs. Banneker. The angels. They're so beautiful." He said that he instantly felt every hair of his body stand up, and an electric tingle course up and down his spine. "They're not here for me this time," she said sadly.
This girl got cut into 2,000 pieces, and this is a massive trigger warning. On January 19th, 1996, the mutilated remains of Diao Aquing, who disappeared 9 days prior, were found across multiple locations in China. Her body had been dismembered into over 2,000 pieces. The case remains unsolved, and it's one of the most notorious crimes in Chinese history. On January 10th, 1996 in the evening, Diao and her college roommate were punished for the illegal use of an electric appliance. After a conflict with the dormitory management, she left the building and did not return. Diao was last seen alive wearing a red coat with a black lining. She was reported missing, but her family was not notified by the authorities until January 19th. The discovery of Diao's remains in the winter of January 19th was first reported by a sanitary worker. Initially, he thought it was pork, so he brought it home for food. And while preparing the meat for himself, 3 human fingers were found in it. The worker then reported the discovery to the police, and they confirmed they were human fingers. Human remains in plastic-wrapped packages were eventually discovered across 8 locations around the university, including at a stadium, entrance gate, hospital, and along roadsides. The police later confirmed that the scattered remains were of Diao's and informed her father to visit Beijing. Between January 20th and 30th, Diao's head and clothes were found. More than 2,000 human remains were recovered. Diao's head and internal organs were boiled for several days. Crucial organs including the heart, liver, and spleen were never found. The forensics team was only able to identify the remains as belonging to a female through the analysis of body hair and muscle tissue. Relatives of Diao were able to identify her through a mole on her right cheek. A senior officer involved in the case described the killing as really cruel, which in my opinion is a nice way to put it. The officer also added that the pieces of flesh were dissected with high precision, only achieved by an individual with great understanding of anatomy. Police concluded that the murderer must have been a professional butcher or surgeon. Teachers and students then became the subject of investigation. 2 suspect profiles were brought up, including a single physical fit middle-aged male. However, the university department could not find any individuals that matched the characteristics of the profile. A major investigation was launched in the university and the areas around, but no major clues of the crime were found, and the case failed to make any progress. In 2016, Nanjing police told the family of Diao that the case is still under investigation. Okay, so let's talk about this case for a second. If the killer was never found and he had the skill to dissect somebody into 2,000 pieces and never get caught with it, don't you think he might be a serial killer? And if he was, how many more people do you think he murdered after Diao? The dedication and skill, and honestly the obsession to cut somebody into 2,000 pieces and not get caught with it is crazy. This person could be walking around the streets of China today doing the same things to other people that he did to Diao. The thought of that is absolutely disturbing, and may Diao rest in peace.